Okay, welcome to Unix System Administration. This is just a short PowerPoint presentation to introduce you to the course. So let's begin. Alrighty. So welcome. I'm going to try to make this kind of fun. Some people think this is fun, others don't. I guarantee you're going to learn one heck of a lot. Now, I will tell you though, this is not like a starter course for how to operate a computer. You're going to need to know, you're going to bring something to the table here. But we are going to cover everything associated with installing and running and administering a Unix-based or Linux-based server. We are going to start at the bare bones basic, assuming you know nothing, and then ramp up from there. And there's an awful lot of stuff in here. I mean, tons of stuff. I try to make it so you don't have to memorize that much stuff, because I never liked memorization. So I talk about concepts and philosophies, things that I would expect you to be able to remember, not details. Okay, so this is an online course with asynchronous video lectures, which basically means every week a new batch of videos appears. I put this in here because occasionally some people will say, oh, well, I could just do this anytime I want. No, there are tasks due every single week. There's two books. The big book, this is what I call the big book. By the way, I use horrible abbreviation. We talk about this is the Unix and Linux System Administration Handbook. So I'll say the ULA, H. It's stupid, but whatever. And then the other one is this book. Now, quite frankly, I happen to have bought the honest to God physical copy. You don't have to do that because this is available for free. This is one of those few opportunities where there's not an ethical issue. Yes, you can download this for free without any issues whatsoever. I just like hard copy books, so I happen to have the hard copy one. Okay, so I kind of mentioned at the beginning that I don't necessarily go by the books necessarily. I tend to spend a lot of time talking about things outside the book, and I'm guessing somewhere around 15%, 20% of the material is not in the book at all, so you really have to pay attention. Okay. So this is what's called a lecture-heavy course, and I like to tell lots of stories, and sometimes the things that we say and do in lecture end up on quizzes and assignments. So, yep. I mean, I'll demo, for example, how to install a mail server, and then you'll have a homework assignment that says, install a mail server. So, yeah, you kind of sort of need to know what's going on. I don't particularly like PowerPoint, so this is like the only PowerPoint you'll probably see in the entire course. And so anyway, paying attention to lecture is kind of important. This isn't one of those things where, oh, well, I'm driving down the road, I'll listen to the lecture on my phone, or I'm in the middle of watching TV, so I'll just kind of, no, this requires your undivided attention, unfortunately. Okay, so online videos, the course is broken up into weeks, so, 16-week course, see how that works. Typically, it's 2 or 3 chapters in the book. About somewhere between 1 to 2 hours a week worth of stuff. Altogether, it's 19 hours of video. And you might go, 19 hours? Ah! Yeah, but kind of do the math here. I mean, if this was a 16-week course, and you were there for an hour and 15 minutes, okay? 2 days a week, that's 40 hours. So you're getting a bargain at 19 hours. Now, the videos are broken up into 15-minute chunks just because I know you have a life. You can't spend 2 hours in one setting because life happens. So 15-minute chunks, which gives you plenty of time for a potty break or whatever. And I'll mention later on, I'm going to do a demo here. And you probably already know this, but you know how you can change the speed of a YouTube video. You click on the little gear and tell it, I want 1.5 or something, and it'll speed it up. So instead of taking an hour to do something, you might take, 45 minutes to do something. Just a thought. Okay. So obviously all these videos are prepared in advance. So there's no opportunity for you to raise your hand and go, hey, I had a question. But you can email me something, and I'm pretty doggone vigilant with responding to emails. So send me, as soon as you have an issue, you can say, I had no idea what the heck you were talking about. Could you go over that one more time? That's good. And you can even, in the middle of working on an assignment, I give you a homework assignment and you got 2 weeks to work on it. It's okay to send me a note saying, what on earth did you mean by that? Or, can I show you what I've got so far and you can tell me if I'm on the right track? Yeah, that's good stuff. And then, of course, if you need a real honest-to-God face-to-face, we can do Zoom or WebEx or Teams or whatever, or a real honest physical meeting if you had to. Okay, so requirements. Since this is an online course, it's fairly obvious that everything is going to be done on Canvas. We're not doing any paper. So, okay, and you do need access to a halfway decent computer, and quite frankly, you're probably going to need a Windows 10 or 11 machine. I'm going to be using a Windows 10 to do the demonstration stuff, and yeah, and you need a reliable internet connection at home to be able to pull this thing off. I mean, it'd be really bad if smack dab in the middle of a quiz your internet went out. That would be really bad. Okay, so we are going to be doing some screenshots of stuff. Mostly Microsoft Word, a document with screenshots. That's what you're going to be submitting. So that obviously means you need Microsoft Word. Now, quite frankly, I don't really care if it's Microsoft Word. As long as it can produce Microsoft Word documents. As long as it can produce a doc file or a docx file, I'm okay. So I don't really care about the software. I'm talking about the file format. And we're going to be using a product called Oracle VirtualBox. You've probably heard of that. That's going to be our lab environment. That's where we're going to install all this stuff. And you probably already know that you can get free copies of Microsoft 365 through the university. Okay, so VirtualBox. We are going to be asking you to install VirtualBox on your machine at home. And it kind of sort of, we need a 64-bit machine, which practically everyone has these days. Good grief. At least 8 gig of RAM again, unless you bought a tiny little play computer. That's probably okay. And I'll talk about this later on. It's recommended, but not absolute, that some of the features of Windows should be disabled. And we're going to be installing the actual honest-to-God Linux distribution in class. So don't install that in ahead of time. You can install VirtualBox ahead of time. That'd be fine. Okay, so yeah, virtual machine files are huge. And so maybe you don't have 60 gigabyte left off on your laptop computer. So you might think about getting a USB external drive. Those things are relatively cheap. We actually have a few at the university to lend you if you have a problem. You'd have to come get it. But yeah, the idea is these things are big, and at the end of the semester you can just kind of blow them off, obviously. But the machine files get to be rather large. Okay, so what are your expectations for this course? Well, you're going to learn what's called the UNIX or Linux shell. The shell is like the command line operating system. And there's a gazillion commands, and I'm not asking you to memorize it. In the real world, if you were to go like some cube farm in some office building, and they have people working with Linux stuff, probably on the wall of their cube is like a cheat sheet of stuff. That's perfectly normal and quite frankly acceptable for this course. You don't have to memorize stuff. You still have to do it, but you don't have to memorize. It's okay to use cheat sheets I can't remember how to do the copy command. Well, okay, here's how you do it. That's perfectly okay. And so you're going to learn an awful lot about the administrative task, and then you're going to have to demonstrate that. I mean, you're going to have to install a web server. You're going to have to install a mail server. You're going to have to install and configure, all and down the line. So you don't really need to be a computer expert to start this course off. Quite frankly, it might be a little helpful, but it's not required. And it's not my job to turn you into a computer expert either. And we're not going to do hardly any programming. Yeah, I do have one chapter on shell scripts, but I give you enough examples that I don't think it'll be a problem. Okay, so just a little bit more about this. Yeah, Linux is different, okay? The command line part. You may have seen Linux before, but you've probably installed the workstation GUI version, which kind of sort of looks like Windows. That's what everyone else installs. Well, that's not what server is about. Typically, if you install a Linux server, it does not come with the graphical user interface. You do everything from the command line. And you might go, oh, well, that's old-fashioned. No, not in this world. It is extraordinarily current that server versions do not have the GUI components, and therefore to administer a server, you need to do it at the command line. Yeah, and if you haven't spent much time at the command line, this may be a rude awakening. I have done this before where I've popped up on the screen in a classroom environment and say, okay, type this. And, hands start going up. Oh, I can't get it to work. And I say, well, you need to put a space there. Oh, well, no, that word is capitalized. You have to do it exactly the way I have it on the screen. And a lot of people just flat are not used to doing that. I mean, it's very, very precise. Okay, so again, learning a bunch of command line tools, man, I promise I won't torture you too much. Okay, so we have 2 books. We're going to do, 13 chapters in this guy, or the electronic version of that. And then, of course, 19 chapters in the big book. This is the administration book. So chapter 1 is actually going to be in here. And then we're going to put this thing away and do all the rest of the chapters in the free book. And then come back to this guy. So it's kind of funky. Okay. So this is just a thing that I show at the beginning of every class, just so you can really kind of understand. You understand me. The more you understand how I operate, the better this class will be. So, in grade school, you're always like memorizing state capitals and stuff like that. You were recalling and duplicating and list and memorize and cheat and classify. We're in college now. I expect some green in here. I expect you to compare, contrast, distinguish, examine, execute, implement, solve. Yeah, I'm going to be showing you how to do something, and then it's going to be your turn to do it. You're going to have to demonstrate that you know how to do this stuff. Okay, so we're in the green area. And just to kind of drive home this point, rarely do I ever have a test question that says, what's the definition of this term? Oh, come on. I mean, if it were me, I'd copy that term, put it in Google, and whatever the heck Google spit out, I'd copy and paste it in the quiz and go to the next question. So, no, I'm not after that. I'm not after what your Google skills are. So when you do one of my assignments, you're going to have to be paying attention to the fact that I'm asking you to think. Okay, so just to drive home this point again, it's kind of like what versus why. What is the capital of South Dakota? Well, quite frankly, the correct answer, in my opinion, is I don't know. I'll look it up. Because we just flat don't need to memorize things like state capitals anymore. Well, perhaps we never did, but that ain't the point. So I would want to know things like, why did the capital move from Houston to Austin? Now, that's the story behind that. That might be interesting. But what's the state capital? That's nothing. So, easily supplemented by online materials, application help files, cheat sheets, that's perfectly okay. But I want you to know why something occurred. Not that it occurred. Why did it occur? Why did we use one particular email server versus another? I mean, there's choices. Why did we choose this one? That would be a good question. And then, of course, what are the long-term effects? You might think, oh, well, I got a choice here. I could do X, Y, or Z. But it's like, yeah, but Z is going to come back and bite you in the butt. So, yeah, you kind of need to know the why part. So I'm after you understanding things, not remembering things. Okay, good. So course requirement, there's 2 major exams, a midterm and a final. There's going to be a review session for that week where I just go over all the topics that are going to appear in the exams. 6 quizzes. They 20 questions takes about 30 minutes. I give you an hour, but it takes about 30 minutes. Those are released, 1 week before they're due. Assignments are released 4 weeks before they're due. Okay, and it's almost always submitting a Word document. Sometimes with lots and lots of screen captures showing me that you've done what it is you're supposed to do. 1 term project, and it's pretty good size, and lots of screenshots. So I give you 4 weeks to do that. And then there's a thing called a participation score, which is based upon, how well you've did in. There's a syllabus exam coming up, and a thing called a journal, which we haven't talked about. Okay, so we're coming up on the 15-minute mark. I mentioned that I break these things up into chunks to provide you an opportunity to breathe. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to stop the video and then pick it up again in just a minute.